The great space station called Concordia Prima floated in the darkness between stars. It was huge, bigger than most moons, and it sparkled with lights from 1,000 different alien ships. Today something important was happening. The Galactic Council was meeting to decide the fate of humanity. Inside the main chamber, 12 different alien species sat in a giant circle. Each group looked very different from the others. The Zephyrians were tall and made of crystal that caught the light like diamonds. The Thrikari looked like giant insects with hard shells and many arms. The Valari had blue skin and 4 eyes. All of them were much bigger than humans. In the center of the circle stood a small group of humans. They looked tiny compared to the aliens around them. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was their leader. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been speaking to alien governments for 20 years, but today felt different. Today felt dangerous. The chief Zephyrian stood up. When he moved, his crystal body made soft ringing sounds like wind chimes. His voice was deep and echoed through the chamber. "The humans have gone too far," he said. "They have taken worlds that do not belong to them. They have built cities on planets that were already claimed by other species. They spread across space like a disease." Ambassador Vasquez tried to speak, but the Zephyrian raised his hand to stop her. "We have found human settlements on 47 worlds." He continued. "These worlds were not empty. They belonged to us, to all of us in this council. The humans ignored our laws. They ignored our borders. They took what they wanted." The Thrikari war chief made angry clicking sounds with his mouth parts. His black eyes gleamed as he spoke. "Humans multiply too fast," he said. "They build too quickly. They change everything they touch. If we let them continue, soon the whole galaxy will be full of humans. What will happen to the rest of us?" Other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. Some growled, some whistled, some made electronic beeping noises, but they all agreed on one thing. Humans were a problem that needed to be solved. Ambassador Vasquez stepped forward. She was not afraid, even though she was surrounded by creatures that could easily crush her. "May I speak?" she asked politely. The council leader, a floating blob of gas called a Netherian, made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. "You may speak, human, but make it quick." "Thank you," Elena said. She looked around the circle, making eye contact with as many aliens as she could. "You say we took worlds that belonged to you, but when we found these worlds, they were empty. They were dead rocks floating in space. Some had old ruins on them, but no one was living there." She pulled out a small device and projected images into the air above her head. The images showed barren planets covered in dust and rocks. "This is what Kepler 442b looked like when we found it," she said. "Just rocks and poison gas. We spent 10 years making it livable. We cleaned the air. We brought water. We planted trees. Now it is green and beautiful." The images changed to show a world covered in forests and blue oceans. "We did the same thing on dozens of worlds," Elena continued. "We found dead places and brought them back to life. We thought you would be happy. We thought you would want to share these beautiful new worlds with us." The Zephyrian leader made a harsh sound. "It does not matter what the worlds looked like before. They were in our territory. You had no right to change them without asking permission." "But we tried to ask," Elena said. Her voice was getting stronger now. "We sent messages to your governments. We asked if anyone claimed these worlds. Most of you never answered us. The few who did said the worlds were worthless." A new alien spoke up. It was one of the Altarians who looked like purple trees with many arms. "The human speaks truth about this," it said in a slow, deep voice. "We told them that Kepler 442b was a dead world. We said it had no value. That is not the point," the Zephyrian snapped. "The point is that humans expand too fast. They take up too much space. They are dangerous to the natural order of the galaxy." The war chief of the Thrikari stood up. He was even bigger than the Zephyrian, with thick armor covering his whole body. "I have seen what humans do," he said. "They change everything. They build cities where there should be wilderness. They tame planets that should stay wild. This is not natural." Elena felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "We change things to make them better," she said. "We turn dead worlds into places where life can grow. We build cities so families can have homes. We create farms so people do not go hungry. How is this wrong?" The floating Netherian made its wheezing sound again. "The question is not whether your intentions are good, human. The question is whether the galaxy is big enough for all of us. And we have decided that it is not." A cold feeling spread through Elena's stomach. She had been afraid this moment would come. "What are you saying?" she asked. The Zephyrian stepped forward. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. "We are saying that humanity has grown too large. You have spread too far. It is time for you to return to your original space. The Council has made a decision," the Netherian announced. "All human settlements outside of your original 12 star systems must be abandoned. You have 180 standard days to remove all humans from the disputed territories." Elena felt like someone had hit her in the stomach. 180 days? That is impossible. We have millions of people living on those worlds. Families who have been there for generations. Children who were born there. How can we move them all in 6 months? "That is your problem to solve," the Threkari war chief said. "If any humans remain in the disputed territories after the deadline, we will consider it an act of war." War? Elena could not hide her shock. "You would start a war over this?" "We would finish a war that you started when you invaded our space," the Zephyrian said coldly. Elena looked around the circle of alien faces. Some looked angry, some looked sad, but none of them looked like they would change their minds. She realized that the decision had been made before she even entered the chamber. This whole meeting was just for show. She took a deep breath and stood up straighter. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner of the great chamber. "Very well," she said. "If this is what you truly want, we will comply. We will abandon the worlds we found as dead rocks and turned into gardens. We will leave behind the cities we built, the farms we planted, the schools where our children learned to love the stars." She paused and looked each alien leader in the eyes. "But I want you to remember this moment," she continued. "We came to the galaxy seeking friendship. We shared our knowledge freely. We helped anyone who asked for help and many who did not ask. We brought life to dead worlds and hope to dark places." Her voice grew stronger and more serious. "You are forcing us to leave because you fear us, but you should not fear us. You should fear what happens when we are gone. Because when your worlds face disasters, we will not be there to help. When your people get sick, our doctors will not be there to heal them. When pirates attack your trade routes, our ships will not come to protect you." She walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back one last time. "You will miss us when we are gone," she said quietly, "and by then it may be too late to bring us back." The chamber fell silent as the human delegation left. Outside, Elena could see human ships already beginning to gather, preparing for the greatest exodus in galactic history. Soon, millions of humans would have to abandon the only homes they had ever known. But Elena's words echoed in the great chamber long after she was gone. Some of the aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few wondered if they had just made a terrible mistake. Only time would tell. The evacuation began 3 days after the council meeting. Across 47 star systems, humans started the hardest thing they had ever done, leaving their homes forever. On the planet New Geneva, Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his laboratory for the last time. He was a thin man with kind eyes who had spent 15 years studying diseases that hurt alien species. His lab was filled with machines that hummed and blinked with colored lights. Papers and data screens covered every surface. 6 months, he said to his assistant, Dr. Sarah Kim. We were only 6 months away from curing the Genti plague. Sarah looked at the samples they had to leave behind. The Genti were a species that looked like large cats with silver fur. For 300 years, a terrible disease had been killing them slowly. No one had been able to find a cure until Dr. Chen started working on it. Maybe we can take the research with us, Sarah suggested. Marcus shook his head sadly. The council observers said we can only take personal items. All research materials must stay here. They both knew what this meant. Without the human research, the Genti would keep dying. The plague would continue to spread through their worlds. Millions of them would suffer. Dr. Chen picked up a small photo of his daughter from his desk. She was 12 years old and had been born on New Geneva. This was the only world she had ever known. Where will we go, Dad? She had asked him the night before. Back to Earth, maybe, he had told her, or one of the other core worlds. But all my friends are here, she had said, tears in her eyes. What about my school? What about my pet Shimmerbird? Marcus had not known what to tell her. How do you explain to a child that adults sometimes make decisions that hurt innocent people? All across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening. On Harmony Station, the Rodriguez family was packing up their small apartment. Captain Sarah Rodriguez was a cargo ship pilot. who had been working the outer systems for 8 years. Her husband taught school to alien and human children together. Their twin boys were 7 years old. "Can we take Mr. Whiskers?" asked one of the boys, holding a small alien creature that looked like a furry rock. "Mr. Whiskers belongs on this world," Sarah explained gently. "He would get sick if we took him to human space." The boy started crying. His brother put an arm around him. They did not understand why they had to leave everything behind. On the agricultural world of Ceres Prime, the Johnson farm family was saying goodbye to 3 generations of work. Old Tom Johnson had been one of the first humans to settle on the planet. He had turned a valley of poisonous mud into rich farmland that fed 3 different alien species. "My grandfather built this farm with his own hands," said his grandson Mike Johnson. "We grew food that helped end the famine on 2 alien worlds. And now we have to just walk away?" The Galactic Council had sent observers to make sure humans left completely. Most of these observers were from species that had voted to force humans out. They watched without emotion as families destroyed their own lives. But some of the observers were starting to feel uncomfortable. Kez's. Thara was a Velari botanist who had come to watch the evacuation of the research station on Darwin's world. She had 4 eyes and blue skin, and she was an expert on plant life. She watched humans carefully destroying equipment they had spent years building. "Why are you breaking everything?" she asked Dr. Liu, who was in charge of the station. "Council orders," Dr. Liu replied sadly. "We are not allowed to leave anything that might be useful to other species. But your terraforming equipment could help us grow food on dead worlds," Thara said. "Why would the council not want us to have it?" Dr. Liu stopped working and looked at her. "You would have to ask the council that question. We offered to give you all our research for free many times. Your governments always said no." Thara had forgotten about that. Years ago, humans had offered to share their technology with everyone. Most alien governments had been too proud to accept help from the primitive humans. Now she watched as irreplaceable knowledge was destroyed. And she began to wonder if her people had made a mistake. The evacuation was not just about people. Humans had built hospitals, schools, power plants, and water treatment centers on dozens of worlds. They had created trade routes that connected distant parts of the galaxy. They had volunteered to patrol dangerous areas where pirates like to attack merchant ships. All of this was being abandoned now. On Kepler Station, a trade hub near the Galactic Rim, Station Master Chen Wei was shutting down the computers that controlled shipping traffic for 12 star systems. "Sir," said his assistant, a young Altarian named Branch who reaches Sky, "what will happen to the trade routes when you leave?" Chen Wei looked at the massive displays showing hundreds of ships moving through space. "I suppose your people will have to take over," he said. "But we do not know how," Branch who reaches Sky admitted. "The pirates come from the Dark Nebula. Your patrol ships kept them away. Our people are not warriors." "Then you will have to learn quickly," Chen Wei said. He did not sound happy about it. The hardest part of the evacuation was leaving the children behind. Not human children, they all had to go, but alien children who had become friends with humans. On New Terra, 8-year-old Jenny Martinez was saying goodbye to her best friend, a young Genti named Softpaw Runner. They had played together every day for 3 years. "Will you come visit me?" Softpaw Runner asked in her musical voice. "I don't know," Jenny said honestly. "My mom says we probably can't come back. But why? Did we do something wrong?" Jenny did not know how to explain it. How do you tell an alien child that adults are afraid of differences? How do you explain that fear sometimes makes people do cruel things? As the deadline approached, the evacuation ships were loaded beyond their safe limits. Families crowded into cargo holds. People slept in hallways. Food and water had to be rationed. Captain Sarah Rodriguez commanded one of the last ships to leave the outer territories. Her cargo ship, the Esperanza, was carrying 2,000 people who should have been spread across 5 ships. But there was no time to make multiple trips. As they crossed the boundary into human space, Sarah opened a communication channel to broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Colonial Fleet," she said. "We are complying with the Galactic Council's order. We are leaving the worlds where our children were born, where our parents are buried, where we built our dreams." She paused, thinking of her own boys sleeping in the crowded cargo hold below. "We leave behind more than just buildings," she continued. "We leave behind hope. We leave behind the idea that different species can work together to make the galaxy better. We leave behind our friends." Her voice grew sad but also strong. To our alien friends who are listening, we want you to know that this is not goodbye forever. We still believe in the dream of a galaxy where all species help each other. If you ever need us, call out to the stars. Somewhere humans will hear you and come to help. She closed the channel and looked back at the worlds they were leaving behind. Already some of the lights were going out as automated systems shut down. Soon, worlds that had been green and growing would start turning brown again. In the months that followed, millions of humans crowded into the 12 systems they were allowed to keep. These core worlds had been settled for hundreds of years and were already full. Now they had to make room for refugees from 47 other worlds. It was hard, really hard. People had to share homes with strangers. Children had to go to schools in shifts because there was not enough room. Food became expensive because the agricultural worlds had been abandoned. But humans are good at adapting. They always have been. Slowly, they started to build new lives in their crowded worlds. They started new businesses, new schools, new research projects. They tried not to think about what they had left behind. They tried not to wonder what was happening to their alien friends. They tried not to listen for calls for help from the stars. But sometimes, late at night, they could not help but wonder, what would happen to the galaxy now that the humans were gone? The answer to that question was already beginning to unfold in the empty worlds they had left behind. But it would be months before anyone realized the true cost of forcing humanity to leave. By then, it might be too late to fix the damage that had been done. 6 months after the last human ship left the outer territories, things started going wrong. It began slowly. On the agricultural world of Harvest Moon, the weather control system started failing. The humans had built machines that kept the climate perfect for growing food. Without human technicians to maintain them, the machines broke down one by one. Farmer Thek of the Altarian Agricultural Collective watched his crops die in a sudden freeze. The weather had been controlled by computers for so long that no one remembered how to farm without them. The human maintenance crews used to fix this, he told his supervisor, Branch who counts seeds. They came every month to check the equipment. We can learn to fix it ourselves, Branch who counts seeds replied. But when they opened the control panels, they found technology too complex for them to understand. The humans had built systems that were efficient and reliable, but they required knowledge that the humans had never fully shared with others. Why had they not shared? Because no one had asked. The alien governments had not wanted to depend on human knowledge. They had been too proud to admit they needed help. Now that pride was becoming a problem. On Kepler Station, the first pirate attack happened on a Tuesday. 3 unmarked ships jumped out of hyperspace and attacked a convoy of Genti merchant vessels. The convoy sent out distress calls, but no one came to help. Before the human evacuation, this would not have happened. Human patrol ships had volunteered to protect the trade routes. They had not been paid for this service. They had done it because they believed in keeping space safe for everyone. Now the patrol ships were gone, and the pirates knew it. Captain Zexhai of the Genti merchant vessel Golden Wing sent a desperate message as pirates boarded his ship. This is Golden Wing requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack in Sector 779. Where are the patrol ships? Where is anyone? But the only answer was silence. The pirate leader, a savage creature called Skull Render, laughed as he took control of the Genti ship. No more humans to protect you, little cat people, he snarled. The galaxy belongs to the strong now. In the weeks that followed, pirate attacks increased across the outer rim. Merchant ships started traveling in larger convoys for protection, but this made trade slower and more expensive. Some trade routes were abandoned completely because they were too dangerous. The economic effects spread quickly through the galaxy. On the Zephyrian crystal worlds, the situation was becoming critical. The Zephyrians needed special atmospheric processors to breathe. Their homeworld had the right atmosphere naturally, but their colonies did not. Humans had designed and built the atmospheric processors that kept millions of Zephyrians alive on 12 different worlds. Now those processors were breaking down. Zephyrian engineer Torhaz stood in the control room of Processor Station Alpha, watching warning lights flash red across the control panels. He had been trained to operate the station but not to repair it when major components failed. How long do we have? Asked Administrator Velthara, her crystal body dimming with worry. Maybe 3 months before the atmosphere becomes too thin to breathe, Torhaz replied. I can try to slow the degradation, but I cannot fix the primary filtration system. The design is too complex. Velthara remembered the human engineer who had installed the system 5 years ago. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been small and quiet, but she had understood the technology perfectly. She had even offered to train Zephyrian engineers to maintain the system. "We do not need help from primitives," Administrator Velthara had said back then. "Our people will learn to operate it ourselves." Now Dr. Martinez was gone, forced to leave with all the other humans. And Velthara's pride was not going to save the lives of 3 million Zephyrians on the colony worlds. Meanwhile, the Genti were facing their own crisis. The plague that Dr. Chen had been so close to curing was spreading faster than ever. Without human medical researchers, no one was working on a cure anymore. Dr. Soft Whisper Healer was the best Genti doctor, but she was losing patients every day. She stood beside the bed of a young Genti child whose fur was falling out in patches. "Please," the child's mother begged. "Can you not contact the human doctors? They were so close to finding a cure." "The humans are forbidden from our space," Dr. Soft Whisper Healer replied sadly. "The Galactic Council made it very clear. Any human presence in the outer territories would be considered an act of war." The child coughed weakly. Each cough brought up blood. "Then my baby will die because of politics?" the mother asked. Dr. Soft Whisper Healer had no answer. She had opposed the decision to force humans out, but her voice had been ignored. Now she had to watch helplessly as the plague killed more of her people each day. The problems were not just technological and medical. They were also cultural and social. On New Geneva, where Dr. Chen had once worked, the local Volari population was struggling with something unexpected: loneliness. For 15 years, humans and Volari had worked together, shared meals, even celebrated each other's holidays. Young Volari scientist Branch, who studies stars, spent her days in a laboratory that felt empty. The human researchers had been her friends and mentors. They had taught her new ways of thinking about problems. "I miss their strange jokes," she told her supervisor, Branch, who leads research. "I miss how they would try new things even when the old ways worked fine. They made everything more interesting." "It is better this way," Branch, who leads research, replied, but he did not sound convinced. "We can do the research ourselves." But progress had slowed dramatically. The humans had brought energy and creativity to every project they joined. Without them, the Volari research teams felt sluggish and uninspired. The most serious crisis was developing on the Nexari homeworld. Their sun was showing signs of instability, exactly the kind of stellar anomaly that human astrophysicists had predicted and offered to help prevent. Dr. Flame That Burns Bright was the Nexari's best stellar scientist. She studied the readings from their sun and felt cold fear spreading through her energy-based body. "The solar fluctuations are increasing," she reported to the Nexari High Council. "If this continues, our sun could release a massive solar flare that would destroy all life on our homeworld." "How long do we have?" asked Council Leader Heat That Gives Life. "Maybe 2 years. Maybe less. What can we do?" Dr. Flame That Burns Bright hesitated. She knew the answer, but she was afraid to say it. "The humans had a plan," she finally admitted. "Dr. Robert Kim from the Deep Space Monitoring Station sent us a detailed proposal 3 years ago. He wanted to build solar stabilization satellites that could prevent the flare. Where is this proposal now? We rejected it. We said we did not need help from primitive aliens." The council chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered that decision. They had been so certain that their technology was superior to anything humans could offer. "Can we build these satellites ourselves?" Heat That Gives Life asked. "No, the technology requires knowledge we do not have, and Dr. Kim's monitoring stations are no longer operational. We cannot even track the sun's behavior accurately anymore." As months passed, the problems multiplied. Supply chains broke down without human coordination. Research projects stalled without human innovation. Conflicts arose without human diplomacy to solve them. The Thrakari war chief, who had called humans a plague, was now facing civil war on his own homeworld. The Thrakari had expanded their population based on food supplies from human agricultural worlds. Now that those supplies were cut off, different Thrakari clans were fighting over remaining resources. "Perhaps we should ask the humans for help," suggested one of his advisors. The war chief's mandibles clicked with anger. "Never. I would rather die than admit we need those soft creatures, but in private." He looked at reports of Thrakari children starving and wondered if his pride was worth their lives. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. In government chambers and corporate boardrooms, alien leaders were quietly admitting that they had underestimated humanity's importance. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, but this time the mood was very different from the meeting 6 months earlier. Instead of confidence and anger, there was worry and confusion. The trade disruption is becoming severe, reported the Altarian trade minister. Pirate attacks have increased by 400%. Several major trade routes are now considered too dangerous to use. The agricultural colonies are failing, added the Volari food coordinator. Without human terraforming technology, the modified atmospheres are reverting to their original toxic states. Medical research has stagnated across 17 star systems, said the Genti health minister. We are facing health crises that human doctors were helping us solve. The Zephyrian representative was even more direct. Our colony worlds are dying. We need the atmospheric processors that humans designed. Without them, millions of our people will suffocate. Council leader Vexhai, a Netherian who had voted to exile humanity, floated in the center of the chamber. His gaseous body was darker than usual, showing his distress. We made our decision based on the best information available, he said. We believed that humanity was expanding too aggressively. What if we were wrong? Asked the Volari representative. What if the humans were not expanding for conquest, but for help? It does not matter now, Vexhai replied. The decision is made. We cannot appear weak by changing our mind 1 year after the human exodus. The galaxy was falling apart. The crisis started on Crystal Prime, the largest Zephyrian colony world. The atmospheric processors that kept 3 million Zephyrians alive finally failed completely. Without the special gas mixture they needed to breathe, the crystal-based beings began to suffocate. Administrator Velthara watched helplessly as her people died. Their crystal bodies grew dim and cracked as they struggled for breath. Children were dying first, their smaller bodies unable to survive as long without proper atmosphere. Send an emergency message to the Galactic Council, she ordered her communications officer. Tell them we need immediate evacuation for all colonists. But where could 3 million Zephyrians go? Their homeworld was already overcrowded. Other colony worlds were facing the same atmospheric crisis. There simply was not enough room for everyone. Ma'am, the communications officer said quietly. There is something else. The human who designed our atmospheric system, Dr. Sarah Martinez, she is still alive. She is working on Earth now. Velthara felt hope flicker in her crystal heart. Can we contact her? Officially? Oh. The Council's orders forbid any contact with humans in the disputed territories, but there are unofficial channels. Velthara made a decision that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Contact her. Ask if she can help us. I do not care about Council orders anymore. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The proud alien species who had forced humanity to leave were now facing the consequences of their decision. On the Thrakari homeworld, civil war had broken out. Different clans fought brutal battles over food and water that had become scarce without human agricultural support. War Chief Karthak stood on a battlefield littered with the bodies of his own people. His advisor, Sub-Chief Vextar, approached with a report. The eastern clans have captured 3 more food distribution centers. Our people are starving while they argue over who gets to eat. Karthak's mandibles clicked with frustration. The Thrakari were warriors bred for fighting, but they had never been good at growing food or managing resources. The humans had quietly handled those tasks, leaving the Thrakari free to focus on what they did best. How many have died this month? Karthak asked. 12,000 from fighting. 20,000 from hunger. Karthak closed his eyes. Each death weighed on his conscience. He had been so certain that forcing humans out was the right choice. Humans expanded too fast, he had thought. They took up too much space. They were dangerous. Now his own people were dying because of his decision. Sir, Vextar said carefully, some of the younger warriors are asking why we do not simply ask the humans for help. Because I forbade it. Karthak roared. I will not beg for help from the creatures I called a plague. But even as he said it, he wondered how long his pride could last while his people starved. The Genti were facing their own catastrophe. The plague that Dr. Chen had been close to curing was now spreading faster than ever. Whole cities were being quarantined as the disease jumped from one population center to another. Dr. Soft Whisper Healer worked 18 hours a day treating patients. But for everyone she saved, 3 more became infected. She had not slept properly in weeks. Her silver fur was falling out from stress. "Doctor," her assistant said, "there is a message for you. It is from Dr. Marcus Chen on Earth." Dr. Soft Whisper Healer's ears perked up. "What does it say?" "He says he heard about the plague outbreak through unofficial channels. He has been continuing his research on Earth. He thinks he has found a cure, but he needs samples from current patients to be sure." "Send him everything," Dr. Soft Whisper Healer said immediately. "I do not care what the council says. My people are dying." The crisis was not limited to technology and medicine. The entire economic structure of the galaxy was collapsing. Pirate attacks had made trade so dangerous that many merchant companies simply stopped operating in the outer systems. Whole worlds found themselves cut off from essential supplies. The price of basic goods increased dramatically as supply chains broke down. Captain Zexhai, whose ship had been attacked months earlier, was now leading a coalition of merchant captains trying to maintain some trade routes. But it was becoming impossible. "The pirates are getting bolder," he reported to the Merchant Guild Council. "They know there are no human patrol ships to stop them. Last week they attacked a convoy in broad daylight right next to Altair Station." "What do the local governments say?" asked Guild leader Merton. "They say it is not their responsibility. Each species only protects their own territory. The humans were the only ones who patrolled neutral space." The worst crisis was unfolding in the Nexari system. Their sun was becoming increasingly unstable, and without the human deep space monitoring stations, they could not accurately predict when it might release a deadly solar flare. Dr. Flame That Burns Bright studied the latest readings with growing despair. The solar activity was increasing faster than her models predicted. "How long do we have?" asked Council Leader Heat That Gives Life. 6 months. Maybe less. When the flare happens, it will destroy all technology on our homeworld and kill any life forms that are not underground. Can we evacuate our population? Where would 8 billion Nexari go? No other world has the energy fields we need to survive. Heat That Gives Life made a decision that would have been impossible a year ago. "Contact the humans. Ask Dr. Robert Kim if his solar stabilization satellites can still save us. The Council forbids contact with humans," his advisor warned. "The Council is not about to watch 8 billion Nexari die," Heat That Gives Life replied. "Make the contact." These illegal communications between alien worlds and human space were happening more frequently. Through backchannels and secret networks, desperate alien leaders were reaching out to the humans they had forced to leave. On Earth, Dr. Marcus Chen received the message from Dr. Soft Whisper Healer and immediately began preparing samples of his experimental cure. He knew he was breaking galactic law, but he could not stand by while the Genti died from a disease he could cure. Dr. Sarah Martinez, now working on terraforming research on Mars, got the desperate plea from the Zephyrian colonies. She stayed up all night designing portable atmospheric processors that could be quickly deployed to save the crystal beings. Dr. Robert Kim, who had been forced to shut down his stellar monitoring stations, received the urgent message from the Nexari. He looked at his designs for solar stabilization satellites and began calculating whether there was still time to save their world. All across human space, the message was spreading. Their former alien neighbors were in trouble and needed help. The human response was immediate and unanimous. Despite being forced from their homes, despite being called a plague and a threat, humans began organizing relief efforts. "But they threw us out," said Dr. Kim's assistant. "They said we were dangerous. Why should we help them?" Dr. Kim looked at the data showing the Nexari sun's increasing instability. "Because that is what humans do," he said simply. "We help people who are in trouble. It does not matter if they like us or not." This attitude was shared throughout human space. Relief organizations formed overnight. Doctors prepared medical supplies. Engineers designed emergency equipment. Ships were prepared for rescue missions, but there was a problem. The Galactic Council had made it clear that any human presence in the outer territories would be considered an act of war. If humans tried to help, they might start a conflict that would make everything worse. The situation came to a head when the Zephyrian colony world of Crystal Haven sent an official distress signal. 500,000 Zephyrians were dying as their atmosphere became unbreathable. They needed immediate evacuation or emergency atmospheric support. The Galactic Council met in emergency session once again. This time the mood was very different from their previous meetings. Instead of proud confidence, there was fear and desperation. "The situation is becoming untenable," reported the Zephyrian representative, his crystal body dim with exhaustion. "We have lost 3 colony worlds already. Crystal Haven will be next if we do not act quickly. What do you suggest?" asked Council Leader Vexhai. "I suggest we admit our mistake," the Zephyrian said boldly. "We forced humanity to leave based on fear, not facts. Now we are paying the price for our pride." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. No one wanted to admit they had been wrong. The humans were expanding too aggressively, the Thrakari representative insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "Were they?" asked the Valari representative. "Or were they simply going where they were needed most?" This question hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time, the council began to seriously examine the pattern of human expansion. What they found shocked them. Every world that humans had invaded had been facing some kind of crisis. Dead planets that needed terraforming, plague-stricken populations that needed medical help, dangerous space routes that needed protection, areas with resource shortages that needed agricultural support. The humans had not been conquering. They had been helping. "We have been fools," said the Altarian representative quietly. "We saw human expansion and assumed the worst. We never asked why they were expanding to those specific places. They were going where no one else would go," added the Valar. The message arrived at Earth's orbital command center on a quiet Tuesday morning. It was transmitted on emergency frequencies and carried the official seal of the Galactic Council. Admiral Jennifer Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Fleet, read the message 3 times before she believed what she was seeing. "They want to meet," she told Ambassador Elena Vasquez, who had rushed to the command center as soon as she heard. "The entire Galactic Council is requesting an emergency diplomatic meeting." Elena looked at the message. After 18 months of silence, the aliens who had forced humanity to leave were finally reaching out. But the tone of the message was very different from their previous communications. Instead of demands and threats, it was filled with formal language that barely hid desperation. "They want to meet in neutral space," Elena noted, "at the old trade station between human and Altarian territory." "What do you think they want?" Admiral Hayes asked. Elena thought about the secret messages that had been arriving for weeks. Desperate pleas for help from dying colonies, medical emergencies that only human doctors could solve, technical failures that only human engineers could fix. "I think they want us to save them," she said quietly. The meeting was arranged for 1 week later. Elena took a small diplomatic ship to the neutral station, accompanied only by her aide and 2 security officers. She did not know what to expect, but she was prepared for anything. When she arrived at the station, she found 12 alien ships waiting for her. Every major species in the galaxy was represented. This was not just a diplomatic meeting. It was a full gathering of galactic leadership. The meeting room was the same one where she had been told to evacuate human colonies 18 months ago. But everything felt different now. The alien representatives who had once seemed so confident and powerful now looked tired and desperate. Council Leader Vexhai floated in the center of the room, his gaseous body darker than Elena remembered. When he spoke, his voice lacked the authority it had once carried. "Ambassador Vasquez," he began, "thank you for coming. We have a situation that requires discussion." Elena sat down at the small human table. She was still surrounded by creatures much larger than herself, but somehow the dynamic had changed. She no longer felt like she was facing judges. She felt like she was facing people who needed help. "What can I do for you?" she asked simply. The Zephyrian representative, Administrator Velthara, spoke first. Her crystal body was cracked and dim. "Our colony worlds are dying," she said. "The atmospheric processors that your people built are failing. We have lost 4 worlds already. Crystal Haven has only days left before the atmosphere becomes unbreathable." She paused, struggling with what she had to say next. "We tried to fix the systems ourselves, but the technology is beyond our understanding. We need your help." Elena nodded but said nothing. She let the silence stretch until another representative felt compelled to speak. The Thrakari war chief stepped forward. His armor was scratched and dented from the civil war raging on his homeworld. "My people are fighting each other for food," he admitted. "Without the agricultural worlds that humans maintained, we cannot feed our population. Thousands die every day from hunger and violence." His voice grew quieter. "I called humans a plague. I said you spread too fast and took too much space. I was wrong. You were the only ones keeping my people fed. One by one, the other representatives told similar stories. The Genti were dying from a plague that Dr. Chen had been close to curing. The Nexari faced extinction when their unstable sun released a solar flare. The Volari colonies were reverting to toxic wastelands without human terraforming support. Pirates ruled the space lanes where human patrol ships once kept trade routes safe. Research projects had stalled without human innovation. Conflicts that human diplomats had quietly resolved were now spiraling into wars. When they finished speaking, the room fell silent. Elena looked around at the assembled alien leaders and saw something she had never seen before. Humility. You want our help, she said. It was not a question. Yes, Council Leader Vexai replied. We are formally requesting humanitarian assistance from the human government. Elena leaned back in her chair. The same humans you called a plague? The same humans you said were dangerous to the natural order of the galaxy? The same humans you threatened with war if we did not leave our homes? Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. The Thrikari war chief's mandibles clicked with shame. We were wrong, Velthera said quietly. We let fear and pride cloud our judgment. We saw human expansion and assumed conquest. We never looked at why you were expanding to those specific places. And why were we expanding there? Elena asked. Because you were helping, the Altarian representative said. You went to places where no one else would go. You solved problems that we ignored because they were too difficult or too dangerous. Elena nodded. For 15 years, humans tried to work within galactic law. We asked permission to help. We shared our technology freely. We volunteered for dangerous jobs that others would not do. And in return, you accused us of aggression. The room was completely silent now. Every alien representative was looking at the floor or the walls, unable to meet Elena's eyes. But you know what the worst part was? Elena continued. It was not the accusations or the forced evacuation. It was that you never asked us why we were there. You never tried to understand what we were actually doing. She stood up and walked to the center of the room. Every world you forced us to abandon was facing a crisis. Kepler 442b was a dead rock when we found it. We spent 10 years making it livable, and we were planning to turn it over to the Volari government once the terraforming was complete. New Geneva was a plague-stricken world where the Genti were dying by the thousands. We went there to help them, not to conquer them. Elena's voice grew stronger as she spoke. Darwin's world was an abandoned research station that we turned into a center for agricultural development. We gave away our research for free to anyone who wanted it. Harmony Station was built to coordinate trade routes and protect merchant ships from pirates. We never charged fees for protection. She looked directly at each alien representative. We were not invading your territory. We were cleaning up problems that you did not want to deal with. We were doing the jobs that were too dangerous, too difficult, or too thankless for others to handle. The Volari representative, branch who studies stars, spoke up. We know that now, she said sadly. But knowing does not fix the damage we have caused. Our people are dying because of our mistakes. Elena felt a familiar stirring in her heart, the same feeling that had driven humans to help struggling worlds in the first place. Despite everything that had happened, she could not stand by and watch innocent people suffer. What exactly are you asking for? She said. Council Leader Vexhai's gaseous form brightened slightly with hope. Medical assistance for the plague outbreaks. Technical support for failing infrastructure. Protection for trade routes. Help with the Nexari solar crisis. And in return, we will publicly acknowledge our error, Vexhai said. We will admit that humanity was wrongly accused and forced from their homes. We will create new laws to ensure this never happens again. Elena was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the human families crowded into refugee settlements in the core worlds. She thought about the children who had been forced to leave the only homes they had ever known. She thought about the research that had been destroyed and the friendships that had been broken. But she also thought about the Zephyrian children suffocating as their atmosphere failed. She thought about the Genti dying from a plague that humans could cure. She thought about the Nexari facing extinction from their unstable sun. There are conditions, she said finally. Name them, Vexhai replied immediately. First, the historical record must be corrected. The galaxy must know the truth about human expansion. We were not conquerors. We were helpers. That truth must be taught in every school and remembered by every generation. Agreed. Second, humans who choose to return to the outer territories must be welcomed as equals, not as temporary visitors. We want full citizenship rights on any world where we establish communities. Agreed. Third, this can never happen again. There must be legal protections to prevent any species from being exiled based on fear and misunderstanding. Agreed. Elena paused. There was one more condition, but she wondered if she should ask for it. What else? Fexhai asked, sensing her hesitation. I want an apology, Elena said quietly. Not just to me, but to every human family that was forced to leave their homes. To every child who had to say goodbye to their friends. To every researcher who had to abandon their life's work. You owe them an apology. The room was silent for a long moment. Then slowly each alien representative stood up. War Chief Karthak spoke first. I apologize, he said, his voice heavy with shame. I called your people a plague. I threatened you with war. I was wrong, and my people have paid the price for my error. I am deeply sorry. One by one, the other representatives offered their apologies. Some spoke in their own languages, their words translated by computers. Others used human speech, their alien voices struggling with unfamiliar sounds. But all of them were sincere. When they finished, Elena felt tears in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. For 18 months,